perhaps we can start with a quick introduction. Wilson, would you like to quickly tell us about you, the group, and maybe if you could tell us your, of course, your name, but what is your affiliation? Where are you, and what do you do? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Rafik, and everyone. Yes, I'm Wilson Kayom. I'm here in Kampala, the capital city of Uganda, and it's a very bright morning. We formed a group recently, bringing together, different professionals from different parts of the continent. And so we have, a platform where we keep exchanging information, views on the broader, theme of urban development. And therefore, we have been in touch with Dr. Rafik to see how, this group can also contribute to this very special document, this document which is supposed to guide, the entire world. So we are really privileged to be part of this discussion as an African group. So here we are, the beauty with our group is that we have people from diverse, backgrounds. Among us, we have urban specialists, we have economists, we have, different professionals. Currently, I'm affiliated to the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, the central government ministry, responsible for ensuring sustainable urban development in Uganda. That is the work I am doing. I work as a full-time consultant supporting this ministry to implement urban programs. That is what briefly I am doing now, but also, I'm also, working, with colleagues to ensure that, we come together as, African colleagues, urban practitioners, to ensure that, we keep sharing, information, we keep encouraging one another to ensure that, there is sustainable urban development, across, the African continent. So briefly, that is what I am doing. So over to you,
Thank
Daniel.
you very much. Thank you, Wilson. Fantastic to hear your experiences and fantastic to have your participation.
I think we have Eugene on board, no?
Yes, I think he can just send me the presentation. Let's go to Brenda. Brenda, we can see you. Go ahead. You might want to unmute first.
Good morning. I'm Nagula Brenda, and I'm a physical planner currently working with Dr. Kayom as a graduate trainee in the Ministry of Lands in the OSMIT program. Yeah, we are currently working on how to ensure that planning is moving on smoothly in the different regions within Uganda. It's nice to meet you all, and we are hopeful for a great meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who would like to introduce themselves next? Kakala? John?
Oh.
John Kakala?
Yes, Eugene, how are you?
Yeah, okay. I think we lost John. John, can you hear me? All right. Let's try with Mudua, Brenda, which I can see. Welcome. We cannot hear you, so you have to unmute.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much. My name is Mudua Brenda, and I'm a physical planner. I'm working here at the NGO. It's called Urban Afrikanische Traum right now, under Dr. Kayom. I'm so glad to be part of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your introduction. Patrick Musingusi.
Are you getting me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome, Patrick.
Yes, I'm Patrick Musinguzi. I'm based from the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, University. I happen to be a person who is keen about rural peri-urban development, and I have special interest in land use planning for urban and rural-based systems, and I have been doing work that relate to integrating natural ecosystems into rural-urban systems, and basically trying to see how one can introduce urban agriculture and all these kind of ecosystems, natural ecosystems, into urban systems and rural systems. I'm based here in the college, Makerere University.
And that's in Uganda too?
Yes, yes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Patrick. Remy, welcome.
Hello, thank you very much. Just that you can see me, if that works.
We can see
okay,
you
good.
clearly.
All right, so my name is Remy Sejupi. I'm based here in Nairobi, Kenya, working for the United Nations Human Settlement Program, UN Habitat. And some of my colleagues will be here. We have been working on this topic, hence our interest and presence in this very exciting moment of exchange.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Remy.
Can I just add that Remy used to be one of the pillars of the GLTN?
Oh, fantastic. How fantastic to have you then. Okay, we have Camilo Romero.
Yeah.
Camilo, can you hear us?
Yes, Daniel, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Camilo. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Camilo Romero. I am a colleague from Remy. We have been working for a while now. I'm working at UN Habitat, the Urban Rural Linkages project. Yes, and just to mention, I had the opportunity to study with you, Daniel. You were my professor in Colombia at the University of Los Andes.
Fantastic, Camilo. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you immediately, but of course, how fantastic to have you. Are you based in Uganda at the moment? Where are you based, Camilo?
I was in Nairobi for 6 months, but now I am based in Berlin. But Remy kindly invited me to join this meeting.
Fantastic. So you are in Berlin. Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. That's fantastic to have a colleague from Colombia, from Los Andes, joining us. I also have Vanessa Tiaba. We're waiting for. Yes, we can hear you, Vanessa. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, depending on what part of the world you are from. Morning. So morning here in Kampala. My name is Vanessa Tiaba. I work for GIZ here in Uganda, and we're supporting public, private, and civil society partnerships to encourage natural resource stewardship. So it has a lot of cross-cutting issues, urban planning, sanitation, waste management, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. I just logged on, so I've just been thrown on the spot, but I'm happy to be here.
We're just introducing ourselves. You just got right on time, so that's perfect. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Eugene,
what's going on?
Eugene just called me. He has a lot of difficulties to get into the meeting, to join the meeting. So, well, he's doing his best, but he is wondering whether we could all shift to Skype. But I think that would be quite difficult.
And that would be difficult. Well, we will try. We will try to see if he can join us. Otherwise, we will go ahead and do the quick presentation and listen to the opinion of you guys, and we can leave the conversation open and people can send us the feedback to make clear to everyone. Eugene is the chief consultant who has been writing the draft document that we want to have a conversation today. I am the project manager and chair of Commission 7 at the FIG, which is leading the development along with the professional cluster of this project.
And I am the representative of the professional cluster.
Thank you, Rafik, in case you don't know it. And the cluster has been fantastic in helping us have an interaction with multiple parties, and this is a great opportunity. Who I'm missing? I see here Abimbola or Molabi. Can you hear me? Yes. Abimbola, can you hear me? No, yes, no, maybe not. So we can see Jesse Umoha. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us about you? All right. Not answered yet. Also have Bongile Shantini. Can you hear me, Abongile?
Hi, Daniel. Yes, I can. How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I am from South Africa. Yes, I am from South Africa and I work for the UNDP as a consultant.
Fantastic.
I'm really interested in this because I'm mainstreaming youth and persons with disability and trying to access a platform where we can build better.
Fantastic. Great. That will be interesting to have your point of view. Thank you. Grace, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Grace Gipuri. I'm from Nairobi, working at Inhabited, working with Remy Sijiping. I can see he's here, mainly on urban rural linkages work.
Fantastic. Great. Who I am missing? If you haven't had the opportunity to introduce yourself, please, this is a good moment to introduce yourself. Anyone else? Okay, we'll see. I think we got pretty much everyone. Okay, well, I don't want to talk a lot. I want to give you a quick introduction. Yes, Rafik.
I'll call Eugene once again. Sorry, and get back to you. Go ahead.
No worries. See if he can join the meeting. Okay, so we want to have a conversation about a document we've been developing along with UN Habitat, more specifically the GLTN, which is the Global Land Tools Network. And as some of you might know, GLTN focuses on land tenure. And following an initiative that's been happening across the United Nations system, in where both FIO and UN Habitat are working together to try to get a better understanding on how urban development can integrate better with rural development and also the other way around. So they developed some principles or overarching principles, and those overarching principles are intended to foster cooperation between projects that develop urban areas as well as those that develop rural areas. Right, so with that introduction, we have developed a draft document in where we try to get now new principles specifically for the land sector in terms of linkaging urban rural development. So for us, it's very interesting to have this conversation because we see the need for that integration. And some of you have been working more in urban areas, some of those in rural areas. And we need to understand how we can advise better governments in this integration. Ideally, what we would like to see is that the document will be, after consultation and refinement, the document will be distributed to governments around the world, of course, in Africa, but hopefully also in Latin America, in Asia and in other places, and have that opportunity to have something to work with in terms of ensuring that both urban and rural development have synergies and develop at the same pace. So I'm gonna use the presentation of Eugene. Let me see if I can have a look. I'm opening in it, the presentation. I'm gonna share a few slides, going very quickly on them, because I think, again, what I want to hear from you all is much more, where are the opportunities to have integration between urban and rural development. Welcome, Joseph. I can see you just arrived. Welcome. Would you like quickly to introduce yourself? You have to unmute first, Joseph, sorry. You have to unmute. Yes.
Thank
perfect.
you. Thank you. I think I'm on now. Yeah, my name is Joseph Zulu. I'm an urban planner. I work with the Zambia Institute of Planners as a registrar. Thank you.
Fantastic. That is very important. Joseph, it is an important area of our project. So as I was saying, there is a draft policy document written by Eugene Chigbu, which is based, he is originally from Nigeria, but he's based in Munich. And he's been very active in Commission 8, and I am the president of Commission 7, and we're working closely with both Commissions 8 and 9. Let me move my slides quickly, and one of the key things is there are opportunities, because both areas of rural development and urban development have challenges. And there are areas in where there are common challenges. And those are listed here. And they include poverty, land corruption, land degradation, environmental issues, lack of jobs, housing challenges, and so on. You can imagine many of these challenges occur both in rural and urban areas. Lack of infrastructure, loss of biodiversity, land-related health and sanitation issues. For example, COVID-19 is shared in those areas, and so on. And also, when we look into the boundary areas between urban and rural, we see some commonalities, and there is a conflict or the effect of the expansion of the city into these new areas, and those cause significant challenges. Now, moving along, there are definitely important SDGs related to land, and some of those are listed here. Probably the most relevant ones are SDG 1, 2, and 5, which clearly establish the need to have a land-related approach to improve the well-being of people. Of course, SDG 11, improve the land use planning, 15, sustainable use of management, and reduction of conflict in SDG 16 are very important. And I think clearly we know that land as a resource where most economic activity occur, it is fundamental in tackling the SDGs. So the rural-urban or urban-rural linkage land project tends to fill up a gap in policy, in directions, in advice to governments to better develop. And in this diagram, you can see how the land tool network works both in urban areas, in rural areas, in planning policy, and so on. And particularly for urban-rural space, in land development, and more specifically when there is peri-urban development spaces, there are opportunities for new policies. So, as I mentioned before, UN Habitat, working closely with FAO, which has been naturally the agency of the United Nations dedicated to rural development, there are some overarching principles for all sectors. They include locally grounded interventions, integrated governance, functional and spatial system-based approach, human right-based, do not harm and provide social protection, environmentally sensitive, and participatory engagement. I am sure most of us will agree with all these principles, as they give us a good basis to think how we can actually integrate the development of rural areas with the urban areas and so on. And when I say integrating, is imagine when you have a land tenure system, how much is serving rural areas compared to urban areas, how the improvements in rural areas of that land tenure system could it be applied urban, and so on, how if we have better urban land tenure, how it could actually help rural areas. Now, this is the first draft of the general framework we are proposing, developed by Eugene. This is what we basically are consulting today, and I will deeper on this slide to try to give you a general sense of what is the proposal, how you can achieve better integration in rural urban land projects. So the vision, of course, is given by the principles we discussed before, is given also by multiple other documents related to urban and rural. And the context is the need for that integration and consider the peri-urban. And we think the tools applicable direct to those principles, overarching principles. And that means, for example, the access to land tenure security has an important principle to do not harm and provide social protection. So basically, the general framework for land that we see is that the application of the tools match the need of those principles, overarching principles developed. Now, something important to keep in mind here, in this initial proposal, we think a key principle to achieve urban-rural land linkage is based on local grounded interventions. So local grounded interventions are the ones who will enable urban-rural integration. And I would like to hear the view of the group on that. Now, what outcomes we expect? We hope to increase land access and tenure, decrease inequality, mutually beneficial infrastructures, territorially connected rural-urban areas, reduce rural-urban migration, and improve knowledge capacity and gender responsibilities. Now, if we were, as you guys all as planners, and we're trying to understand what is the best way to integrate development in urban and rural areas, and specifically related to land, both tenure, planning, valuation, public-private partnerships. What do you think should be that framework? Do you see that these principles can be grounded based on some tools? Do you agree that locally grounded interventions will help us? How do you see that integration? And I would like, with this, open the floor for having a conversation. And I'll leave this slide on. And I will invite everyone to, at this point, to provide us their questions, comments, or experiences, so we can try to understand better how is this working. Before I continue, any news?
Eugene is here.
Oh, I was gonna say, Eugene, welcome.
But I'm here by phone. So.
Fantastic, just on time.
Yeah,
I did a quick introduction, Eugene. We can see you, and it's great to have you here. I just left the slide open for people to provide us their comments and questions. And so please, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I can take questions, please. And thanks very much, Daniel.
Thank you, Eugene.
How do you want the questions? People have to, show up their hand, or what's the process?
No, just speak.
All right. Okay, good.
Remy, go ahead.
All right. Okay, Remy, here's hi, Eugene. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
Okay, thanks for the effort. I was just saying, before we absorb everything, we have not seen, I think we commented on the initial draft. We have not had a chance to look at the second draft, but from what had been presented, we are pleased that you are trying to say localize it, or in the land sector. It is very encouraging, and because this is, apart from the food, land is really one of these areas where we have the opportunity to experiment and really realize the link, because land is continuous, the same as the rights. So this is really a very important area to demonstrate the importance of how we should not be segmenting the territory. So just so that I understand a little bit more, because some of these things is really how do we not only managing, but how do we govern the land? When I look at the tool, some of the issues are in the land governance, which is very critical to ensure that the governance is not divided by rural, urban, peri-urban, for instance. How do we design a governance system that promotes, say, equity and equitable, say, access, use, transfer, this type of things? So the governance element here, I'm not sure if it's subsumed somewhere else, or how do you gonna handle that? So that was one of my first questions, and then I may come later.
Thank you, Remy. Eugene, do you have a reaction?
Yeah, I do. And thanks very much, Remy. It's good to know that you're there, because actually, I don't know, is Danilo Antonio there as well? No. Okay. The reason, because this is based on GLTN agenda, UN Habitat, so it would also be good that they are usually around. So I'm glad that Remy is here. Okay, so with regards to the governance issues, of course, it's not. I do agree with you in terms of the tools. They don't tend to show prominently, but when it comes to the vision, I think it has to be based, the urban-rural land linkages, or rural-urban linkages with land components, or where land components is actually emphasized. I think a key part of it would be to adopt a vision which goes through both governance, policy, and land management tools as well. Adopt a vision that is based on an ideology that considers both urban and rural space as a unified domain for both planning and development. But then, of course, emphasizing their usual special characters also within the continuum, that brings in the peri-urban where they exist. So I think it will be much of a policy issues that comes in mostly from the context of vision and principles. But yeah, I don't think on the diagram it's difficult to see where it is placed, but I would think it comes from the vision, because actually the visions are based on the various agendas or various visions as you have, also your urban rural land, guiding principles, which is a key part of all the principles here are there. And we are glad that out of the 10, 7 of them actually very much link into what we are doing. But I think that would be the challenge, to see how it is directly reflected in the framework. But at the moment, it is conceptually within the vision and the tools aspect. But I've noted that.
Interesting. Very interesting, Remy. Thank you for your participation. I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in Africa, but I know that in other parts of the country, of the world, in other parts of the of countries, there is already division in the governance of both urban and rural areas. So it is challenge to try to integrate that development where there are already political or administrative divisions for those urban and rural areas. And for example, in case of Ghana, which I understand, the land tenure system depends on public land and customary land, and also has urban rural division. So it's something interesting to look into that. Any other comments?
Can I just add, just before you finish, and that's still to Remy, I mean, I can see possibilities also in the context. Here, I use the integrated urban, rural development. It could also be in the context of planning. In that case, territorial planning, comes in, because that's a concept that also draws urban and rural, rural areas. So it's something I have to look into, but I can see that even the territorial perspective of planning, caters for this aspect of governance.
If I can just comment,
please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to emphasize, because in our work on urban rural linkages, what we have realized is that when we start talking about the territory, the territorial approach, in that the narrative under the urban rural linkages, it's much easier to operationalize it. So okay. I think I just want to endorse what Eugene said about the territorial approach. We found that very powerful in making that real. So that's one. But I also have other questions there that I put on the. What we also, I just want to share some experiences on how we have been working toward this and see some changes, and that might be of use to other colleagues working on the urban rural linkages, because we have done the similar thematic entry on biodiversity, on food and nutrition. So I just want to draw from this and share a few ideas, if you don't mind. Mr. Chair, can I just highlight a few?
Please okay. Go ahead. Would you like to share some slides or just talking?
No, I will just talk. If you need be, we can share that with you later on or engage further with Eugene or Rafik and other.
Okay, you can share slides with me later on, please, Remy.
Sure, no problem. Yeah. So one thing that we realize is that
sorry,
actually,
if I may, Remy, if you can share it with all the participants, that will be helpful as well. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. We already shared some materials on this forum that some of you have seen, but we're going to share more later. But I was just reacting to this because I see very much as a promising area of work, and that can really transform and really take forward the approach, GLTN approach of the continuum. It's not only continuum of land rights, but continuum of territory, and that will be so transformative in a way GLTN narrative goes. So in that respect, what we found a bit easier to engage with the constituency and make that real is that we all these things, when they are supported with some cases, example, or some practical tool to show where they have worked, it always makes a big difference. So in our experiences, we have documented what we call compendium of experiences, cases like that support any of, if this is our theory of change in the how do we going to do that in the land, we have to substantiate that each with at least one example cases that works. we found that useful as well. The other thing we have done is that we have developed some really specific instruments that would help make that real in some cases where we found some gaps. GLTN is best positioned and FRG in developing this type of instruments. So I know that in the tool, when I look carefully, these are the thematic tools within the GLTN, yes. Correct, Eugene? Okay,
yes,
and within
yes,
that, and then you have your 8 or so cross-cutting, traditional cross-cutting issues within the GLTN. So that's natural. But the problem is that what we would suggest is that when you now go underneath, you have to find the most promising tools within, say, access to land and tenure. Which one will better articulate so that you have the low-hanging fruits in terms of tools to start engaging with. So just an element of intelligence within the tool to say, by like the territorial approach, for instance, will be one of the means to get there, to start engaging. Then you reach out to the one that are harder to crack. So these are some of the things we have noticed as we were developing the the principles, try to implement, try to see how it works in different contexts, for different constituencies. So I will stop here. You can.
Thank you.
Yeah. Remy, if you let me, Remy, it would be important that you take some time to read the document, because so the thematic, what you see here, the tools, that's why it's applicable areas are the general thematic areas, but the specific tools itself in the document, there's a section where it is presented what specific tools can apply. Although we're still not very detailed on that, and partly the reason is that the GLTN is also looking forward to that this concept can move or evolve into a specific tool for urban-rural land linkages. However, the document specifies particular tools that at this point can apply either in single or, most importantly, in combination of various other tools. But on the diagram itself, I had to be generic in order to create room for adaptability. Yeah. So, but that is noted. Thanks.
Thank you, and the great idea to have examples to show how the framework works. Yeah. Any other comments, and give us a little bit of your experience in projects, what have worked and haven't worked, trying to integrate urban-rural land development. Any comments?
I can also ask a question. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. While others are thinking of comments, for me, this is also a kind of fact-finding mission, and I'm glad that Remy is here. I hope to follow up with him later on. But I think we have colleagues there from Uganda, from the Ministry of Housing. Is there any there? Anyone
yes,
from?
Yes. There are. Go ahead, Eugene.
Okay.
Yes.
So I have a question, because I think, although this is not exactly, they're not applying exactly this type of tool, but they have this rapid fiscal planning appraisal, RAPA, which they conceptualize within the ministry, and they're using for fiscal planning. And it is based on this concept. Of course, Uganda generally planning concept views the entire country as a planning unit, which in this case also applies in terms of territorially viewing the rural and urban as a planning unit. But I would like to ask anyone from the ministry and who has knowledge of this on how they use the RAPA, which is the Rapid Fiscal Planning Appraisal, to connect urban and rural land issues, because I know that they also link it to titling, which in other ways is also a tenure land rights issue, as is the focus of this. So is there anyone from Uganda with from the ministry that has the knowledge and can just give us their experience of how they use the rapid physical planning appraisal to deal with urban rural land challenges?
Maybe Dr. Kayom?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Remy, and everyone. Yes, we have been using RAPA to prepare physical development frameworks for a number of local governments. But what I can say is that this is a new approach which we are still understanding. It is a Ugandan approach, which we are using to ensure that the rural, the rural part of the, of these local governments are also taken into consideration alongside the urban. It's true, we are also using this approach also to ensure that land issues are addressed in the different districts that we have, because these districts or these local governments are largely rural. So we are using RAPA, which is a very rapid physical planning appraisal, to ensure that we demarcate. Once we plan an area, we get, you see that we get a small part of a small part of the district, and therefore survey, you see they survey their land, and also help the communities to get land title through systematic land demarcation and certification. So we are doing that. We are piloting it, and we are still understanding. We keep asking ourselves also so many questions about its effectiveness. But what I know is that some land titles, some certificates of title have already been issued through this process. We have found it a little cheaper in terms of cost, because it's a rapid process, and it's not very very detailed. It's not when we're doing the work, you see that we do not follow like the conventional approach, where we have to collect a lot of data, we have to spend a lot of time in the field, we have to use a lot of instruments and so on. So here we use communities, para planners and para surveyors and so on, to help us achieve, you see that, so that the planning process is not cumbersome. The planning process is not, so difficult, to accomplish. So this is what we are doing in Uganda. But also, if I may raise some concerns with this particular approach, is that the communities right now, the kind of land conflicts that we have in Uganda are mainly, you find one community versus another, one local community versus another. And yet, under this RAPA approach, we are using it, to ensure that individuals get certificates of title. And yet, in my view, I would imagine that I wish if we were like, preparing, planning for, the different, communities, such that we process, I don't know whether it will be right, but, somehow, using it to minimize land conflict at a community level, as opposed to, doing it for individuals like we are doing right now. So the framework you presented, I was thinking that, I was, having a concern within myself. I was thinking, how can we use it to ensure that, land conflicts are minimized, within the different communities, especially, within the, the African context. That is one. Coming to now my own concern that I also wanted to raise, a question, based on your presentation. I was thinking that, there's a common belief in most, developing countries that, people should move from the rural areas to the urban. Now, how will this framework be able to, to help us balance, the urban and the rural? Because government intention, is to move people away from the rural to the urban. Now, to free, land from the rural areas, land in the rural areas for, different, kinds of activities. But people should move to the urban. Now, how is, this framework, responding? How is this framework going to help us to respond, to that kind of a scenario? And then maybe the third issue or the third concern that I want to raise is about.
What's the second? What's the second?
The second one is about, government intention to move people away from the rural areas.
Okay, I got that. I got this? I got that. What's the other one?
Yes, the other one is about the issue of resources, the issue of human resources and also technical resources. This is a situation where most of these countries do not have up-to-date resources, like, for example, data to guide meaningful planning in some of these rural areas. For example, in Uganda, I think the last time we carried out a soil survey, I think was very many years ago. I think it was in the 60s, the last comprehensive soil survey that this country undertook. And right now, the soil scientists we have, as a country, they are too few. I'm glad, I have a colleague, Patrick, here. Maybe he may want to comment, about that. So, so the issue of, the human resources to help us balance, you see, the issue of rural and urban. To me, I think it's a very critical issue that we need to look at. You see that even before we discuss the financial aspect, I am so keen about the issue of human resource and also the technical resources to help us achieve the kind of vision that we are trying to to work towards through this framework. I think maybe for now, let me give opportunities to others. Maybe I will raise another one, last one, after others have also given their views. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before you answer, Eugene, let's listen to a few comments, conscious of time. We don't want to take a lot of time. So let's use the opportunity to listen to others' comments, and then Eugene can have a closing remarks and answering a few of those. Is there anyone else who would like to add their views? Please go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, well, this is Patrick.
Yes, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you, everyone, for your presentations. I just have, I think these are concerns. I think as Wilson has mentioned, that actually our government here is looking at urbanization as the way forward for the future and leaving the land in the rural area for probably massive agriculture and production. And of course, all the patterns all over the world, we are seeing increased urban expansion. We are seeing the radius from the city centers, urban centers expanding out towards the rural systems. And of course, that makes us, of course, be aware in the planning process that, of course, we need to plan for this population that is bursting out in the urban areas, because they will need to be fed, they will need food, they will need survival. And of course, that means that there's going to be pressure on the neighboring natural ecosystems and basically the land systems and the soils and basically the environment. So as we look at the framework, we need to look at these forces, the pressures. As you look at the urbanization increasing, how do we contain also the likely environmental degradation effects or pressures on the neighborhood land? So as he had mentioned, of course, I won't comment much on soils, but this is a global problem in terms of soil management and controlling land quality. That the whole resources around the world, they're under pressure. Therefore, as we do the rural-urban linkage, we need to be mindful of the environment and how we actually optimize and ensure there is a balance. We don't degrade, but also ensure that we maintain the quality in the neighborhood, sustain the community, the increasing population around the towns and the cities. So basically, the other point I'd raised in my chat was our settings here are very difficult. We have different social settings here. The urban people are there's a lot of the communities in urban settings are very disorganized. There's a lot of complexity if you look at the social setting in the urban area. And again, if you go to the rural area, maybe some bit of order in terms of society. Now, those are opportunities as we do the planning. How do we actually ensure that we target the organized social setting in rural areas to ensure that probably we plan well with them and understand their systems? And probably if there is high demand for a given product in the city, how do you use the organized side in the rural area in terms of proper land planning, proper regional land use planning, so that there is that linkage in terms of urban rural setting? Yeah, for now, those are my, I say, comments.
Thank you. We have a comment in the chat from Joseph Zulu, and he's from Zambia, and he wrote, the key question here is, don't you think this is a hurdle to this integration effort? If so, what measures would you suggest to put in place to encourage investment in rural areas? I should read the rest of the question or the comment. It says, I believe the urban-rural integration promotes urban investment in rural areas. In the context of parallel land tenure systems, statutory and traditional, tenure security is often not guaranteed in rural areas. That's a very good point. I mean, I think, as you mentioned it, what are the kind of things that needs to happen? And one of the key things that was highlighted in the outcomes desired by the framework is reducing that migration. Who would like to also add their comments? Please, I use the opportunity to ask you to send us your contact details using the chat. So in the future, we can continue in contact and tell you new versions and so on. Is there any other comments people would like to do at this point?
Before I speak, right?
Yes, before we get Eugene to give us a closing remarks for our meeting. If not, well, we please keep in contact. If you read the document, you can send Eugene or myself some comments, or Rafik, who I would like to thank him for helping us organizing this meeting. And Eugene, would you like to answer to the questions, to the comments raised in the meeting?
Okay, thanks very much. And I really appreciate the comments and the feedback. I don't know, I will just pick them as I noted them. I'm not sure I'll pick them in the order I was asked, but some of them are also cross-cutting. So first on how to stop, the rapid urbanization, how to contain it. I think there is also, we also need to, be aware that the rapid urbanization, of course, is very, very global, but that is not operating at the same rate, in various places. And for instance, someone like Esther Duflo, who won a Nobel Prize, I think last year, as far back as 10 years ago, has actually been arguing that in places like Delhi, in India, where she's worked, done a lot of research, that the rate of the population growth is, the contribution to population growth is much more on the birth rate in urban areas than rural urban migration. So it may not necessarily appear to be the same in every region of the world, or even within the same regions in the same countries. But to contain it, one thing is that we have to also match urban development with rural development. And the reason I think is pretty simple. Whether we like it or not, more people would live in cities There's projected growth by UN Habitat of 175% by 2030. And that would create some more demand for food security. But even in Uganda, as one of you mentioned, that the government sees the rural area as mainly a hotspot for agricultural production. That in itself, it's not in itself bad, you know, because the reality is that in rural areas, in fact, the forests of the world, the agricultural land of the world, most of their addresses are within the rural areas. But the whole idea of urban-rural linkages in itself is that if rural area is going to play a part in food security that would benefit the urban or the major urban population, then obviously there has to be something that the rural people get back that the urban can supply the rural. In that case, that's the only way you can create a balance. And an approach to it, from one of the questions that is asked, is in planning itself that we apply the principle of urban, the principle of backwards, you know, forward and backward linkages between the rural, which can be in the context of linking growth nodes in urban areas and other growth nodes in rural areas. For instance, the strength of an urban area can be matched to link to the weakness of a rural area, so that there will be a much more beneficial relationship, spatial relationship, economic relationship. You know, the relationships will come in various forms, you know, that would benefit the rural area, because that's the only way the rural area can benefit. Because in the spatial game, the urban would always win. But even the urban taking advantage of being dominant, you know, within regions and within countries in itself does not provide balanced development. And to do that, there has to be a corresponding focus in rural areas. So linking hotspots of development in these places would work. Then in terms of technical resources, I think the technical resources, part of it is also what the UN Habitat has done quite a lot when it comes to urban-rural linkages, and which the UN Habitat, the GLTN itself is trying to draw to emphasize the land, the land context, which is why we're talking about urban-rural land linkages. And a lot of other organizations, as you all are working in Uganda and Zambia and other places, I think these are all efforts towards improving the technical issues. However, it's not enough. And that's why when this is done, it has to be done in a more generic way, so that people in various more localized areas can adapt them in their own way. But an approach to improving the human resource would also mean that's where the issue of land tools or land approaches, or the various methods that are available, you know, from different organizations, different governments, you know, can apply. And I think that's where Remy's, Remy's mention of, you know, bringing in cases that actually show the reality, that show the evidence of good practice, you know, would work, because that's the only way we can pick what works and what does not work. For instance, I can say that, for instance, how do you do it? From the GL10 perspective, the social tenor domain model itself is an easier approach, you know, to do it. But of course, it does have some regulatory and regulatory as well as, you know, official endorsement that has to be approved from various governments in order to have it used. The issue of RAPA here can also apply, because these are possibly, I don't know the way RAPA is, but with STDM, but I think RAPA applies similar way. You have to use paraprofessionals, because if the urgency that the situation calls for means that we have to use people who are quick to understand, you know, the short form of doing this in order to have them work out within a shorter period. And so I think STDM, RAPA, and various other SOLAB, various other approaches that enable fiscal planning, you know, or territorial planning at a lower level can help us work this out. So GLTN tools, in terms of specific tools, can also work in various urban and rural areas. Of course, the limitation is that many tools we have were designed either to deal with urban or rural issues. And so it's difficult to get tools that already have that combination or the capacity to deal with urban rural land issues. But that's something we have to strive for the future. And then in terms of measures for balance or balancing both, I think urban rural linkages already promotes many of the measures we are looking for. We just need to apply the political will and also apply the necessary specific components of land issues in terms of certification, dealing with urban upgrading, slum settlement issues within the urban, and finding similar problems in the rural areas and dealing with it in the rural areas. Considering tenure security in urban and rural areas, but particularly in rural areas, as one of the colleagues mentioned, I think the UN Habitat already is applying similar measures using the tenure responsive land use planning, even in places like Uganda and Zambia, particularly where they are working in local communities. I know they've been very much successful in Uganda in this perspective, and that's how I got to know about the wrapper, because I was at the ministry sometime and we had to discuss it, and it has a similarity to the tenure responsive land use planning. And so I think we can continue using the tools we are using. We just need to work towards a tool that combines both urban, dealing with urban and rural challenges. For now, I think that's basically the comments I would have. In terms of conflicts, finally, and this is on a final note, in terms of conflicts, yes, I do agree the nature of conflicts, the community-to-community conflicts, the individual-to-individual conflicts, and even individual-to-community conflicts when it comes to land grabbing and those who are rich and want to, are dealing with communities. I think the wrapper, the tenure responsive land use planning, I can speak for tenure responsive land use planning. It does have components of conflict mediation, and actually the tenure improving aspect of these tools itself are very much reliant on ability to improve or or mediate conflicts and resolve conflicts. And so conflict is a key issue that we have to deal with if we have to continue to improve tenure. So on that note, I think for me, that's all I have to say at the moment. And I really thank all of you and hope we can keep in touch. I've noted a lot of things you mentioned and see how we can integrate them in the further development of the draft. Thanks.
Thank you, Eugene, and thank you all for participating in this meeting. It's fantastic. We got 28 participants, so it's fantastic. Rafik, I don't know if you would like to make any comments before we close.
Yes, I would say that, of course, I was very pleased and honored to attend this meeting and also to have contributed to its organization. I would like to thank Eugene for his important contribution and his important thoughts about these issues. Of course, to thank Daniel as well as the organizer of this meeting, and to thank everybody for this rich contribution to the debate. Thank you so much and all the best, and we'll hope to keep in touch.
Thank you. I send my contact details on the chat. If you need, would like to send us further comments, and we will be in touch if you have sent me your contact details in the chat. So I'll give you a few seconds before I close the meeting if you would like to collect from there my contact details, which is just figcommission7@fig.net. And if you send me your contact details, we'll be in touch in this project. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.